All right then, Gammelgården sausage making, take one.
Hi, this is Anne, and this is my friend Marilyn, and we're going to be doing a class on how to make Swedish potato sausage. We are doing this on behalf of the Gammelgården Museum, which is in Scandia, Minnesota, USA. This recipe that we'll be doing is a recipe that's been in my family for over 100 years. My great aunt immigrated from Sweden in 1905. She had 6 kids, and she brought this recipe with her from Värmland, which is a province next to Norway. We will also be showing another recipe of Scandia, Minnesota. It's their local recipe, which has different ingredients, but we'll just be making my sausage recipe for this video. Stop. I just blanked. Hi, so I'm going to go over the ingredients that you'll need for my recipe for Swedish potato sausage. So for just a family recipe, it will take 8 to 9 medium red potatoes. We have peeled the potatoes and put them in water right now. We will also need whole allspice. Whole allspice comes in a jar like this, and we are counting out, it would be about 40 or 50 whole allspice. The reason we're using whole allspice is because it gives more flavor, and then we're going to be chopping it up ourselves. If you use ground allspice, it won't have the same flavor or texture in the sausage. Then we'll add a little bit of salt, and then this is just regular ground pork. So for the single recipe, it's 1.5 pound ground pork, and then a 1/2 pound of beef casing. Now, casing can be purchased at a butcher shop, or if you go to a grocery store and ask the butcher, they might be able to give you some beef casing, and it comes kind of like this. It looks a little strange, but we will rinse it out because it is preserved in salt, and I'll show you what it looks like in a little bit later. But you can also ask the butcher for beef casing. If they don't have beef casing, you can use pork casing. However, pork casing is much smaller and also much more fragile, and when you're trying to stuff the casing, it often rips and breaks. So that's why I prefer to use beef casing, and that was in the original recipe of my great aunt. We also need onion, so it's just 1 onion for the a recipe that we'll chop up all together, because we'll chop up the potatoes, the onions, the allspice, and the pork all together to get it ready for the casing and stuffing. And for this class, this is an immigrant museum, so we're showing how it was done for the immigrants. And so my great aunt used an old-fashioned meat grinder, which is just an easier with a sausage attachment, which is the way that we stuff the sausage. You could use a KitchenAid sausage adapter. However, just be careful that it doesn't grind the potatoes up too fine as you're stuffing. Cut. So the casing you will get from the butcher looks like this. It looks kind of gross, but you can get over it. Anyway, what we have to do is we have to rinse this out. So first I'm just going to cut some off. You can't say exactly how many you will need, but you just simply take a scissors and cut it through. And then you will take the ends, and you could just cut it however long you need to. It's not any specific length, and we can adjust as we're going to be filling them. But to prepare the casings, you have to rinse them off in cold water. So I just have a little bowl down below there. Rinse them off first, but then we'll also open them and rinse them out that way. So we just have to try to open one of the ends, and that's kind of the tricky part. Maybe turn it off till I get this on. So this is what it kind of looks like. You're trying to open the end, and then you just run the water through this. You can see it's filling with water. And just push the water through the rest of it. And so that's what it should look like when you're done. It should be free of salt, and then you'll be able to stuff it. What we'll do next is to tie the string on the end, on one end, and then we'll be able to stuff it. So just do that with the rest of your casing. Hi, so now the next step is we have cut the potatoes into this bowl into small pieces, and as well as the onions. And we have 2 onions. And so what we're doing is I'm using a hand chopper. This is what my great aunt used, was a hand chopper to chop the potatoes, the onions, and then also the allspice. Now, remember I said that we needed to use whole allspice, which looks like this. This is a mortar and pestle, and you can crush it in here. If you don't have one of these, you can just simply use a plastic bag, put the whole allspice in a plastic bag, and then use a rolling pin to crush them. And but you don't want them finely crushed, because you want to maintain the flavor. Because as you bite into the sausage, you want to have the flavor of allspice. And so that's why we're using whole, because that will be much more flavorful than the powdered allspice. So when it gets to be about like this, when there's still some chunks, then you can pour it into the bowl, and then if you need to, you can add more, because when you add it to your mixture, you should be able to smell the fragrance of allspice. If you can't quite smell all, just keep adding. It's just kind of a taste thing. So just keep adding. If it doesn't smell enough of allspice, add more. You know, like maybe 5 or 10 at a time. Cut. We're back. Now we have chopped up the potatoes, the salt, the allspice. And this is kind of like, you need to have the potatoes kind of chunky, because you want that texture when the sausage is done, but you don't want it too big, so when you're stuffing the sausage it's more difficult. But once again, you can see these black specks are the allspice. So if it doesn't smell allspice, you need to add a few more at a time. And so now the next step is we're going to add the pork and put it all together. Hi, so now I am adding the ground pork. Now, depending on the recipe, the Scandia recipe calls for both beef and pork. And traditionally, in the immigrant days, it depended on what province you came from as to what you added to your sausage. So there are different spices in the Scandia recipe, as well as beef and pork. And beef and pork would have been probably more of a Christmas type recipe, because that meant you had a little bit more it was supposed to be a little fancier for Christmas, so you would have beef and pork. Whereas this one is just pork, and my great aunt had 6 kids, so this was kind of an inexpensive meal to serve her family because it has mostly potatoes and then meat and then spices and onions and salt. And then she would often then serve it with like peas and carrots or some kind of mixed vegetables. And that would be kind of the meal for her family. Hi, so now we are ready. We have the mixture here in the bowl. It's with the pork, the potatoes, salt, allspice, and onion. So we've mashed that up. Now we're going to put it in the casing. And this is what the casing will look like. We're tying the bottom one end. And this is the sausage adapter for the meat grinder. Now, meat grinders usually have a knife inside, a cutter kind of thing, but we don't use that. This is simply a vehicle to stuff the sausage, so you don't need to cut it down anymore, the meat, so you just leave that part out, and then we'll put this in. This is a sausage adapter, so then we will put this on the end, and then we will spoon the mixture here. And you can keep pressing down. If you're doing this by yourself, you're going to have to constantly press down, otherwise you can have someone else do it. And you need to turn and hold on to this, because eventually it will come out. It's always hard to start the first one. Maybe you want to cut it till I get it going. As you can see, it's now coming out of the meat grinder and into the casing. And what you have to do is kind of gently guide it down to the end, and then just keep cranking, and it will be coming out little by little, and then you just constantly move it down to the end. If it gets bubbles in the casing, you can just pierce it with a fork and it will get the bubbles out. That's fine. So we'll come back when we have one of the sausages finished. Hi, so now we've finished one of the sausages, and this is what it looks like. So on the one end we have the string, and then we're going to tie another piece of string. About string, you need to get 100% cotton string, not polyester, because we are going to boil or simmer these in water, and synthetic string could melt. So this is 100% cotton. You can get it in hardware stores. So when you tie the other end, you need to leave like a 1/4 inch, because when you cook this, it will expand. So you just simply tie it however you want to tie your knots. And then when we put it in water, we will then prick the sausage with a fork, because if you don't, then they could explode while they're cooking in the water. So we'll show you that next. Hi, so now we have brought 2 pots to boil, but the key is, once you get the sausage in, to put it on simmer. If you do not simmer, they can explode. So it's by personal experience, I know this. So anyway, when you're putting these sausages into the water, they will expand. So then, you can pan here. So I'll just pierce them with a fork, just so that they won't explode as they're cooking. And then we will simmer them for 45 minutes. So we do that with each one as we're putting. Then when they're cooled, then that's when you can put them in the freezer. They freeze very well, and So if you're not going to eat them right away, you can just put them in the freezer after you have them cooked. If you do not cook them and just put them in the freezer after you've stuffed them, the potatoes will be black. So please cook them first. The Scandia recipe calls for cooked potatoes instead of, we started with raw potatoes with my recipe, but I would also recommend cooking them right away and then freezing them, because then you can just heat them up either in the microwave, or you can fry them in a frying pan just to heat them through before you serve them again. Hi there. So now we're finished. We're cooking the sausage, and we have just some leftover casing. So what you can do is you can just kind of rinse these off. Maybe we'll use a paper towel to just dry these off a bit. And then what you can do is, this is the package that the casing came in, and I'm just going to put them back in there. And the key is, though, to put them back in with salt, because salt helps preserve them, and it also helps with, when you put it back in the freezer, it can last up to a year. But it needs to have salt. One year I didn't add the salt, and it was really hard to get them. They kind of are more pliable if you keep the salt, plus it's a preservative. So just put this in the freezer, and the casing can last for a year, so you can use it throughout the year. Thanks. Hi, so this is our finished product. This has been the sausage that has been simmered for 45 minutes. And then the way that my great aunt served it was with mustard, and this is a Swedish style mustard that you can get at IKEA or a Scandinavian shop, or like Gammelgården Museum.org. And also this is lingonberries that is often served with the sausage as well. And then you can also get that IKEA or other grocery stores. So I hope you enjoyed it, and you can make sausage with anything you want. If you have venison, you can throw in potatoes and different spices. And as a tip, if you want to see how it tastes, fry just the mixture before you stuff it into a frying pan, and then you can taste it, and then you can add more spices if you think it needs it. That's another tip. So enjoy, and make it out of ground chicken, pork, beef, anything you want. So once you have the skills, you can do it and enjoy. So enjoy. Again, the Gammelgården Museum. Please come visit sometime. It's Gammelgården Museum, Gammelgårdenmuseum.org. Thanks. Bye.